So, we've set the stage by looking at the various aspects of confusion. And like I said, within each portion of the confusion, the aggression, the ignorance, the craving, the pride, and the jealousy, there's a seed of wisdom in there. So we're just going to flip it and start to see how the sacred world comes into being. So again, if I start with ignorance, what I actually look at the root of all that is awareness. And I'm going to be using symbols this time, because when you start to get into the sacred world, you start to transcend language. And unfortunately, in order to communicate with you all, I have to use language. But I'd like you to sort of notice the way these symbols are working too. Because if you dream, for example, or if you go into different religious structures or holy places, sure, there's words, but there's also images. And there's also things that point us towards a reality that's informing this reality. And really, again, is that when we start to flip out of the ignorance and we start to get into the awareness, what we're doing is we're actually becoming aware that we are always already connected to everyone. Okay? This is the difference between the finite ego, which actually allows us to do a lot of amazing things, and the absolute self. That part of us, that ineffable part of us, the spiritual part of us that is always moving around the world and in touch with this greater reality. Okay, those two parts of us are with us already. That's why the seeds of confusion lead to the seeds of wisdom and the seeds of what's sacred. Okay, so this is the model of awareness. It begins with the awareness of knowing that we are always already connected to the world. Okay. Next, if we look at the stance of aggression and we feel ourselves stepping back, what are some of the ways that you might think that aggression would actually lead to some component of wisdom? Any ideas out there? Okay, there we go. Way in the back.
Well, if you feel aggression, then perhaps your body is giving you a sign that it's something that you need to step back and wonder about.
Beautiful. So this man just said, when you have a feeling of aggression, you have a sense that you should step back, and your body's giving you a sense that you should ponder something. And I really like what you said about the body, because again, animals step back too and form something when they feel that they need to separate out of fear or one of those things as well. But really what you're doing in the sacred world is you're establishing the opportunity for vision. Vision and the ability to plan and carry out those plans is an aspect of being able to step back from the world. And this is one of the most amazing capacities of human beings. This is actually one of the most powerful things of conscious self-awareness, that as human beings, different from all other organisms on the planet Earth, we can step back and visualize ourselves in the past, and we can envision a future, and we can make plans, and we can carry out those plans. So if we want to create a sacred world, and if we want to create anything at all, it's important that we are able to not only act in the moment, but that we're actually just get a sense of what we're doing now, in the past, and also in the future, and link those things together. So that's the point of view of vision. So as an architectural designer, I work a lot in this realm. I'm constantly trying to figure out what a building's going to look like hasn't actually been built yet. And it's sometimes I can find myself in this realm there when I get frustrated or I'm confused about what I'm trying to get. This is when I need to go ask other people for help, like, hey, I'm stuck on this. How do I do this? Or ask the client, what do you really need here? Because I'm not quite figuring it out. And when I do that, then I can go back sort of into my head a little bit and start to plan things out. Now, vision, again, is a wonderful tool, and it's balanced by the next thing. Let's go back to craving, okay? So craving, again, is that sense of needing to go out into the world in order to get something from it. We want to get something from the world, okay? But if we take that look and feel that natural draw out of the world, that excitement. For example, when you see something of beauty, it pulls you out into the world. And what we start to get is a sense of, this may look like love, but the better word for it is empathy. Okay? That's why I put the E in there. That isn't MDMA, that's empathy. The key about empathy is that you're creating a felt sense of resonance with whatever you're looking at. Okay? There's a famous architect named Lou Kahn who did a lot of modernist structures, and he was a real mystic. He was a mystic in the architectural field. And he had a famous conversation where he went up to a brick and he said, I asked the brick what it wanted to be, and the brick said, I like an arch. And I said to the brick, arches are expensive, you know. Wouldn't you just be happier laying on your side? And Lou Kahn said, no. And the brick said to Lou Kahn, no, I like an arch. And based on that conversation, he made this amazing library on the Exeter campus with these beautiful round circles out of brick. So it's basically that you can have conversations with all sorts of things. You can have conversations and empathy with people in your life. You can have them with material objects. You can have them with trees. You can have them with plants, with mountains. And living in the sacred world is recognizing that you don't just have conversations with other human beings. You have conversations with the entire universe. And that you take the time in order to say, hey, wow, I'm in this world, and you're in this world. What are you here to teach me? Okay? This is one of the greatest things about being a designer and working in construction, is that you're constantly learning from the materials. You're learning from the sites that you visit. They're telling you what they want them to be. Okay? And so this capacity for empathy is incredibly important in the sacred world. Next we have pride. Now pride again is this sense that we have something more than someone else. But if we flip it, we get what I like to call stillness. When you have a sense of pride, there's really no sense of you need to do anything. You know, you can just sort of kick back a little bit. And actually, from the point of view of the sacred world, the ability to kick back and to stop for a moment is absolutely essential. I don't know about the rest of you, but I know that with social media, with smartphones, with computers, we have like more information than anybody else on the planet, and it seems like we double that information just about every 3 days. Our inboxes are overflowing. We're constantly on the move, and we're kind of constantly trying to keep up. Do you ever have that sense that you're trying to keep up with all the information, all the people that are trying to get in touch with you? Okay. So when we convert that sense of pride into a sense of stillness, it actually allows us just to kind of sit for a moment and say, hey, all right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to get off the hamster wheel for a moment, and I'm going to go, all right, what's this world wanting to show me? Get it? It's taking this stance. So we're going back to this awareness that we are already part of the world, that the world since the very beginning has been helping us. It's, not only the chemicals that are in our bodies that have been manufactured over billions of years, not only all our ancestors that have survived and somehow created offspring and on and on and on until it came down to us, to our parents. We are always being helped. We'll continue to be helped throughout our lives. And it's important that we recognize that and we bask in that. We do have a lot to be proud of, but not in the sense that we're separate. We have a lot to be proud of because we are here. There's something in the Vajrayana which is called the Vajra pride, which is called indestructible pride. And that's just basically saying, I am here, and that has meaning no matter what I do with anything. I think that a lot of us, when we feel we're in the rat race, that we have to continuously generate. And this idea of stillness allows us to step back and appreciate the world on a different level. Finally, the fifth of all, we have envy over here. And envy, this is actually going to be really important in terms of how it works with sustainability and these hot topics they have here. Like when we when we look at envy in terms of and I'll give you the hint, green with envy, what we start to see is action. If we look at the natural world, natural world is always in movement. It's always doing things. The trees are always gathering light. They're always producing things. In winter, they lose their leaves. They may go dormant for a while. But things are always happening. There's always constant movement. The sun is rising and setting. The moon is going around the earth. There's a constant state of action. But this action has no neurotic quality to it at all. This is the beauty of the sacred world. I don't know about you all. I know with me, I find myself again and it has to do a lot with the information, is like I find myself feeling really busy at times and overwhelmed. And what I start to do is I start to try to generate, trying to keep up. And that's not the sort of action that we're talking about here. We're talking about an action that has a sense that, one, I have everything that I need. Two, that the world is sacred and that I am part of this and that I've come out of this world. And that three, I can take steps in order to affect the world in a positive way. And that's basically the type of action that we're talking about here. This is an action that, sometimes they say in the Taoist, it's called Wu Wei. It's called actionless non-doing, where you start to tap into basically the world around you that's always offering you something. And then you use that energy, just in the way that natural systems use all the elements within the ecosystem in order to keep some sort of balance. Okay? So do I have any good questions thus far? Any clarifications that need to... Yes? What comes from shame?
Is it compassion?
What comes out of shame? That's a good question. What comes out of shame? Well, how would you say that? If we think about shame a little bit, what does it come? It comes from a little bit. There's a bit of embarrassment there, you know. Shame also has a sense of there's a should in there, like I should have been doing something. Shame really has basically it's very much ego based in the sense that you have a sense of doing something wrong. Okay, so within the sacred world, shame, there is really no such thing as shame. You're doing things, and things that you do, you may not like the outcome from it, but then you decide that you learn from it. I mean, there's plenty of times that I've done things in my life that I would say, hey, I'm ashamed of. And if I sit in the feeling of shame, then basically nothing happens. I make myself like, and if I start sort of moving towards shame and self-hatred, you know, that's rough. But if I start to look at like, well, how did I get myself in that situation? And how was I led into that situation a certain way? And say like, actually, what did I get out of that? Then that shame actually can start to transform, as you said, into compassion. It's basically when you feel that sense of, dang, why did I do that? But then you recognize it's like, hey, I'm a human being. And then the next time, they say you're out in the world and you see somebody else going through the exact same thing as you did, then you'd be like, what you create actually is more empathy. Compassion and empathy are almost synonymous. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, yeah, if you look at a lot of these, you know, you can start to combine them in all sorts of ways in order to get the other emotions that people think about. You know, both the conflicting emotions and the beautiful emotions as well. The ones that we sort of covet and the ones that we don't. Okay. So starting to put it all together, we get the sacred mandala here. And again, the sacred mandala has, in the middle we have awareness. Over here in the west we have empathy. On the eastern side we have vision. To the south we have stillness. And to the north we have action.